So, how's it going, Carl? Hey, everybody, welcome back. Red Morning, Donovan Standard Time, 9:06.
Oh yeah, it's been going well, man. Going well. Like I just told you about, I was on a secret mission that I cannot share the details of. It's kind of
You can't even throw an adjective on there. You're so secretive about it. That's hilarious.
yeah, it was huge, man, huge.
Mm-hmm. So,
No, the main reason I came back, like I had the idea for this show, based on like something I was observing, and the other reason was I saw like the topic on Red Morning. Now, Rule Zero is going to be like how chumps ruin the red pill, and I have like three notebooks of Socrates jokes I have to use up, man.
Oh man, yeah, I've missed you. It's been so much. Well, here's the worst part: is like since you left and now that you're back, the guys that we normally dunk on have not changed. They're still using the same tired arguments, the same jokes. They've still done the same amount of nothing. It's kind of comforting in a way that you can just come back and it's like a really crappy sitcom where no matter where you join in, you're still good to go. Elaine is still Elaine. Kramer's still dropping N-bombs,
Well, you know what it is. It's just like the Real Housewives of the Manosphere, man. I don't know. I'm just still surprised that no one's wife has cheated on them yet, man. That we know of.
Oh,
I've heard some rumors, but
Oh, that one would be kind of edgy. Although, how many guys actually have wives? I mean, there's like Rolo, me, Hunter. Is there anybody else even in a relationship, or is everybody else just kind of pretending to be an alpha male with their one plate that they had 3 months ago?
I don't know, man. It's always one of those weird things that is kind of what gets me with this whole Twitter shit. It's all about that image. It's like it's very easy to portray yourself as whatever you want to be online, but you can always tell though, right? You can always tell like it's like sooner or later, the hawk comes to collect. So if you're renting a bunch of shit, then you'll start going broke and you'll see like suddenly scale downs and shit. But like I haven't paid attention to the manosphere at all, and it's been incredibly relaxing.
I will grant you that. My excessive block list has helped too. But that's why I liked your topic, because nobody really understands that is even a problem. Like, how much time should you spend around your girl? Because they don't really have that option. I think we're going to have fun with this one because I got a lot to bring to the table on this with you, man.
Yeah, and it's also like I was thinking about expanding on it. Like one thing is like if you have a steady girl, like how much time do you spend with her? And the other thing is like if you have plates, how do you distribute your time between them? Because that was always a bit of a like you have those kind of hard and fast rules like never see them 2 days in a row,
right?
Don't appear to be constantly available and so on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I still love the fact that don't be .soy thing became a fucking website, man.
I think you're right. I do have ADD. So I'm having a conversation with you, clicking links, following it all. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Everything's funny.
I don't know, but the whole thing is just I don't know, man. It's like it's a weird thing. This space here because like you get all like I've been around a lot of computer nerds in my days, and like the manosphere is the biggest Berg space. Like the fact that my gym's been closed for 3 months is like the only thing that's getting to me at the moment.
I'm hating that stuff. Here's the thing. Yeah, no, I got nothing. I remember back in the mystery days when they coined the term mental masturbation because guys would come up with these convoluted pickup routines. They never tried them, but it took a little bit from 5 different guys' things, and it sounded good on paper. Basically, socialism. And I noticed that never went away. Like as soon as you work hard, let's face it, this red-pilled space is full of the most unattractive like content and people you can imagine. And then through sheer luck and force, we've managed to build something out of it that's somewhat popular amongst a small niche. And then instantly the masturbators came right back in, brought in Evola, brought in Green Lines, which we'll talk about that next one. But like all this goofy stuff that sounds good on paper. They took a comment from one of Rollo's posts 3 years ago and just ran with it. It's damn annoying.
Yeah, worst part about that is I bet Rollo could identify the exact post when he wrote it and what he was drinking while writing it.
I think he's starting to get either older or a big enough body of work that there's the occasional time where he forgets his article. It's always on like, yeah, if it's not Saving the Best or like Children with Dynamite or The Safety Net, sometimes he runs a couple blanks, which is hilarious.
Yeah, like I look forward to hearing that because like Rollo has always been like I've always had a little bit of a like how the fun like I am like 1/10 of his body of work.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can't like I've actually found myself starting articles, then figuring out I wrote something on this a year ago.
Yeah, and he doesn't do. Yeah, I don't know. His workload is insane. Oh yeah, I guess you've been gone for a while. I released a book. Yeah, a real book, not that Legends of Men shit either.
No, I actually bought it. I'm looking forward to reading it and sending you all my critiques and giving you like 1 star on Amazon. Love the book, but the guy who wrote is a douche.
Oh, dude, there's already 2 of those that did that.
It's like you look like right now, Ryan, with that beard and that hair and that shirt, you look like an extra on Magnum PI.
Don't say that because now you're getting me hooked on the look. The beard was just supposed to be a stupid little LARP about coronavirus hit and everybody's doing their staying at home thing. I was supposed to grow like a battle beard and then make some content at the end of it where you shave it off and you get back to work. But this thing kept dragging on. Boomers kept just holding on for dear life.
To be honest, though, I actually prefer the beard to just the mustache look.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a better look for you, personally.
Oh, you're going to love it, though. See, I have weird growth patterns. It doesn't grow here, and it doesn't grow here. But this part will grow out really long. So in about 2 weeks, I'm going to have like a crazy handlebar. I'm going to out Socrates.
That's going to be awesome, man. And, I had the biggest issue was like my barber has been closed for like 6 fucking weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So my hair is starting to look messy. Luckily, I kind of saw it coming. So I got like a skin fade done right before this thing. So it's still not too fucking long.
Well, yeah, so you're the same as me. I got my hair cut about a week before quarantine started. It's funny too, isn't it? All this like worry about police overreach and the end of the world. And we're sitting here. It's like, damn, I need a better fade.
Yeah, well, like I even had one issue, like because I've been like quarantined for fucking almost 10 weeks now. And my girl came over one day because she was actually in quarantine. She was in isolation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we didn't see each other for like a month while she was in isolation. And she came over and it's like, you have to do something about that fucking beard. Because like she likes beard like women likes beard, but she was like, you look like you're about to write a fucking manifesto and start sending people fucking bombs, man. It's that bad.
Yeah, my girl's same thing. It starts with don't grow a beard, I hate the beard, cut the beard, I like your beard. And then I'll cut it. Why'd you cut your beard? That's every time. In another 2 weeks, she'll start liking the beard again. I guarantee it. Except for the part that tickle her mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I just realized I forgot to monetize this thing. I mean, you're going to kill that monetization anyway.
Yeah.
Like throw strong profanity in the title or thumbnail.
Well, you do remember like what happened on the last Rule Zero I was on, right?
I vaguely remember these. These all kind of blend together for me now. I'm not going to lie to you, man.
No, like I knowingly killed the monetization right before going off by using like an R-bomb.
Yeah, I remember that.
Talking about bundles of sticks.
Rollo and Rich, you could tell they were choked because they were like, we should probably not do that again. But the way they worded it, I'm like, if it was Anthony, it'd be a yelling match.
No, the thing is, I knew the monetization on that video was dead because there was so much. Like, you can't have John on a show and not have at least like one F-bomb every 30 seconds.
Oh, guaranteed. And when we're day drinking, we're pretty bad for it too. I kind of miss that. Our old shows where we started at 9 a.m. having the scotch in front of a computer.
No, I'm still having a beer now, but it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's cool.
Oh yeah, fair enough. You're in some random place in the world. Russian intelligence, we'll call it that.
Hmm.
All right.
No, so anyway, like if we're getting in on topics here, it's been 15 minutes of us just randomly running our mouths.
Oh, dude, people haven't seen you in a while. It's whatever. But yeah, topic. This one guaranteed because in the military we got a briefing before we deployed, saying this isn't like your normal 3 month sail. You're going to go through some phases, and I think is it the Six Sigma guys that talk about norming, transforming, that whole group dynamic thing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. This what is it? Forming, storming, norming. No, forming, norming, storming, and performing.
That's the one. So it's kind of like a similar one for that when people are put together and like on a ship, you can't leave. Everybody was within 15 feet of you at all times. And they say, okay, for the first 5 weeks, everybody's going to be professional. It's going to be smooth sailing. Week 6 is going to hit. And then all of a sudden, everybody drops the politeness and the grudges will come out. And that'll last for about a 2-3 week period. And then everybody will realize like you got to pick your battles, and they just kind of let stuff go and then you ease into it. And this relationship thing, I think, at least for the friends I have and myself, it's followed that exact same pattern. Sure enough, like week 4, week 5, all of a sudden, like leaving the dish on the sink overnight became insurmountably bad. I don't know. Have you been getting that a lot too? Because I guess you're pre-isolation girl. You weren't exactly spending a ton of time together beforehand.
No, but we don't live together.
Ah, so you still don't, right?
No, like like my whole goal is to never live together because like ideally, like I think the guy who had like the best solution with his girl, because they were both divorced, but they bought apartments next to each other in the same apartment complex. So they each had their own apartments and they just hung out.
Dude, that's not half bad.
And the reason I like that is like you have like a male space and then you have a female space. And like I always tend to think that girls like to they mark their territory by putting shit in your apartment that wouldn't be in a bachelor pad.
Mm-hmm.
Like
a stupid KitchenAid blender. God damn it.
Yeah, like suddenly you have air fresheners in the bathroom. You have like a proper place to put your dishes after you wash them instead of just stacking them on top of a fucking towel.
That one sounded oddly specific. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, like instead of like randomly, like you start suddenly you have one of those garbage things where you can actually what's it called, the recycle stuff instead of just throwing everything and dumping it somewhere.
That's funny. So I have the recycling bin.
Because they know that like if a girl comes to your place, that girl is going to be like, okay, he has other girls here because like no fucking dude puts potpourri in his goddamn bathroom.
See, that's just it. For me, it's like the bras that hang over top of the door to the bedroom while they're drying. For me, that's like a very, I don't think they're worried about the potpourri at that point. But I think it's a lot of it is, so I'm clean by myself and my girl swears she's clean by herself. But I find that the kind of mess girls make is the kind of mess that a guy would never make, ever. And that's part of it is like just getting past that they love clutter in the same way that guys don't mind a little bit of dirt. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's like, then again, like I'm a messy guy by nature. Like I have to actually grab myself by the back of my head to actually keep the place clean.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you're like me then. That's the same thing. I just use less things, so it makes less mess.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll minimize the amount of shit I have just because that will minimize the mess.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Like if you don't have like a million fucking little things, you won't mess your house up because it's not enough stuff to make it messy.
Yeah, a little bit of clutter, very easy to clean. It's perfect.
But like I find I make more of a mess in the kitchen. That's where I'm the messiest.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Well, kitchen and then at my work desk here, but that's just generally because like I will spend a lot of time here working. So you get empty coffee mugs,
beer cans,
whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, beer cans. Like I think my record was I had like 4 empty bottles of liquor next to my desk. It was like let's say, what was it, like a bottle? And the funny thing was, it was like whiskey, vodka, rum, gin, tequila. So it was like in the perfect order of my liquor preferences.
You remind me of those guys I used to go to college with that on top of the cabinets in their kitchen, they'd always just have like a row of gin bottles. Gin or like Canadian Club or Crown Royal. They would just have stacks of them. And over the year, you could actually count how many they would drink.
No, I'm not like that. With me, it's more like you have people and they have a mindset like everything has its proper place. So they're the people, they prioritize putting things in their place. That's number one.
Right.
Like if they grab a coffee and they drink their coffee and the mug is empty on their desk, they'll prioritize taking that mug and putting that in the dishwasher or the sink over actually their work. And the way I am, I get so engrossed in whatever I'm doing that I'll usually clean afterwards.
Yeah, which makes sense. You don't want to get out of your flow.
Because I'll be in I'll be in a flow doing something. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be fucking watching cat videos on YouTube for all I care. But I'll be engrossed in something and I'll just think I'll do the coffee mug later. I'll do that dish later. And then suddenly I look over and there's like, I have a side table here. There's like 4 empty dishes and 5 coffee mugs. And I'm like, shit, I need to actually run the dishwasher. It's like, I heard a guy who made the joke the other day. You know how you can figure out when a guy is about to do laundry? No, the sign of a guy needs to do laundry.
Yeah, what is it?
It's on his last pair of boxer shorts.
Dude, I actually have a video. I just filmed it all yesterday and I'm doing the editing now. It's literally laundry. And I don't know, it's like the weirdest man. Like everybody's doing like Lamborghinis and chasing chicks. And I'm like, this is how you iron a shirt.
Well, I would have
no idea how it's going to play, by the way. No idea.
No, I would have loved that video. Like when I moved, because like I always had someone who ironed my shirts for me. For the most part.
Is it you don't know how, or you just can't be bothered?
No, like you know my history, and you know anyone with that history knows how to iron a shirt.
Yeah, well,
at least to make it look good.
Yeah,
in the way you need to make it look good. So you iron like the part you can see, and you don't give a shit about the rest.
All right. I'm listening. You got me.
But like I hate ironing shirts. It's like, well, the only thing I hate more than ironing shirts, like tasks, like I would rather unclog a toilet than try and get that nice crease in khakis.
Yeah, I don't do the creases anymore. Since I left the military, I'm with you. I've never had to worry about train tracks since, and I don't like it's not necessary for most shirts. Most people aren't dressed that formal enough anyway.
No, I mean shirts, but I mean like khaki pants.
Yeah. Oh, dude, putting a crease in those, what are you trying to look like somebody's dad?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. So here's the thing I like, and this is the part that gets me. So speaking of like how the sphere is ridiculous, you know, everybody talks about meditation. That's like the biggest thing ever right now. If you can sit there still quietly and breathe, yeah, your life will be better. And I'm like, I don't meditate because I can just iron my shirts, or I can do laundry, or clean up the dishes, or clean the counters. To be honest, I get that whatever these guys brag about that they get through meditation, I basically get by just doing chores. And I don't understand. I'm picturing a guy in his underwear meditating on top of a pile of dirty laundry. And I'm thinking, like, does he not have the self-awareness to know what you're doing? You're trying to get that feeling of accomplishment without accomplishing. And I know there's going to be somebody in the chat who loves meditation now is going to call me out, but
no, what I usually do is I do that when I'm out walking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could work too.
Because like I more or less never listen to stuff. Like the only time I have a headset on is if I'm actively talking to someone. And
like on the phone, as opposed, I thought you meant ignoring them.
No, like if I'm on the phone, if I'm in a call like this, like phone conferences are big right now because of the corona shit.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's a lot easier to just, when I go for a walk, I just like to hear what's going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only time I actually wore headsets is on public transport because you don't want to hear what's going on around you in public transport.
Dude, I envy you. I really do. Like I got tinnitus and I have to listen to something. Otherwise, all I hear is like that a large humming noise, and it's annoying as hell.
Oh yeah, I have an old friend. He was in the military and he was doing the motorized cannons.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on one of those back in the 80s before they actually realized that wearing
Hearing protection is useful.
hearing protection is useful. So he went to his doctor and he's like, I can barely hear on this ear. And he's like, yeah, we call this cannoneer sear. This is what you get when you spend like 24 months driving around firing a fucking cannon and you don't have any form of ear protection on.
Jeez. Dude, it's brutal. Like I'm still sorting that out to see, because the military hasn't sorted out whether it's a real condition or not, because I guess it's like back pain. I could tell you all the symptoms in that, but they can't diagnose it out externally. So it's really annoying. But yeah, it happened so long. I just didn't even know it was a thing. Like I just thought that's like air conditioners and electronic hum until I watched that movie Baby Driver and they describe how the guy had it. And I'm like, that sound is really familiar. Like that tone is perfect. They really did their research.
But I think I think you just have to kind of deal with it. I don't get why the manosphere loves chick crack so much, man. It's fucking cancer. I don't know.
Well, that's the other thing. And granted, we're about to be talking a bunch of trash about dudes in an hour and a half here, but I noticed gossip is huge.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Like I logged in now. I hadn't been on the Black Label account for freaking probably like the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had a ton of DMs and all of them were fucking gossip for the most part. Like this dude did this dude did that. And at that point it was just like, guys, please stop gossiping. It's like, and I'm guilty of it myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we all are.
Because it's just like it's interesting. Okay, oh Jesus, that guy got an enema now.
But it's almost kind of like funniness of it. I think that's the difference. It's not so much being interested in what other people are doing, but like that was objectively funny. A guy bragging about shoving something up his ass. Not gonna lie.
Well, for me, it's more like it's not about the fact that it's gossip. It's just like, what the fuck did they do now? It's just like you're kind of exasperated, but it's also getting to a level of ridiculousness where it's legitimately funny. And you're just kind of like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
The lack of self-awareness behind it makes me laugh more than anything.
Oh, yeah.
Any attention's good attention attitude. I love that.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, we should probably get on topic at some point here. So you live with your girl, right? So yes. What's your take on like the time? Like I know she's probably been, I don't know, she's been working from home, I'm guessing, because of the corona thing.
Yeah, and she's never done it from before. She's never done working from home before, so she makes those same mistakes everybody makes. Like you've working from home for a while now, so you kind of know these. Where all of a sudden, what normally would have been like a 45-minute walk for her to work and a 45-minute home, she started working as soon as she got up. So she wakes up, sits down at the computer, starts working. She works, and then she realizes dinner time, and then she stops then, and then she checks her phone at night. That lasted like 3 weeks. And then she just started like, I'm stressed all day and I can't figure out why. I'm like, because I told you to pace yourself. But here's the thing, like for a lot of this stuff, especially, and I'm as guilty for it as anybody, when people change their routines, they don't often understand how, like, for example, the overworking yourself 12, 13, 14 hours a day can affect how well you process other things. And so this would manifest in fights over, I left a pop can in the recycling bin. Don't you know that the dog could eat it, or something like that? Like these real weird, nonsensical fights. And I have a lot of friends who are not so good at conflict. And so here's what they do then. They take it at that surface level. Well, she's bitching to me about the cans, and then they start yelling at her. And then all of a sudden, what could have been a simple solution of stop working so hard, take your hour lunch break and relax and stop looking at your phone. And it turns into like two people at each other's throats. So I think subtext in game is huge. First off, just so you understand that sometimes it's just not about what you're arguing about.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of the things that I have the biggest issue with, like
Hmm.
lunch beers.
Doesn't sound like an issue.
Well, it's just like it's one of those things I've been noticing because it's when you're working from home. Like I have the habit whenever I get home, I usually have a beer or two or a drink or whatever.
Right.
And I've just noticed that that started like, okay, I'll have a lunch beer on Friday. Then it's Thursday. Then it's Wednesday. And suddenly I'm having beers at lunch every fucking day.
Oh, now you're day drinking.
Yeah, and I just have to get to the point where, like, okay, you know, I can't have a beer for lunch on a fucking Monday.
But that's just it. What does Monday even mean anymore? Like, I don't know about you, but for me, I was doing that too, where I kind of devolved into day drinking, and then one day I just woke up and I'm like, kind of like, it loses the novelty, and then I just kind of stopped. Now I'm back to like maybe twice a week I'll have a beer, dinner time, lunchtime, something. No breakfasts, thank God.
No, that I only do breakfast drinking twice a year.
or if we're doing the old school Red Morning episodes.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, you're at a different time zone. Never mind.
I'm at a different time zone. Like when we do the first ones, yeah, but no, but the whole thing with me is like I do it when my birthday. I have beer with every meal on my birthday.
Aw.
And the whole reason for that, and here's the reason: there's a brewery in Denmark called Mikkeller.
Okay.
And they did a series of beer. I'm going to pull it up here. And it's Beer Geeks Breakfast, Beer Geeks Lunch, Beer Geeks Dinner, and Beer Geeks Dessert.
Okay.
And like probably 5, 6, 7 years ago when that series came out, I just made it a habit of like having like for breakfast, then it's Beer Geeks Breakfast. Then lunch, it's Beer Geeks Lunch. So I just do a meal that fits with all of those beers for my birthday.
Fair enough. It's a good enough tradition, I guess.
And then it's Christmas.
Oh, you got to do Christmas. It's one thing I miss about Montreal. The one of like the three things I miss about Montreal is that you could buy beer at Costco. So you would go in there, I would just pick up a flat of Sapporo and a flat of Guinness. And then the idea was during the Christmas weekend there, the 3-day period, is to try and get through them all, which is deceptively hard to do. Because it's Costco, so they don't have like tall boys. They have these like weird Costco-sized tall boys. And then sit down and watch every 80s action movie that has Christmas as the theme.
Oh yeah, I've done that a few times.
That's what pisses me off now. Hipsters are all into that. Oh, yeah, back to the topic then. So obviously there's a situation where we had to deal with too, where you have to realize like sometimes other things create the problems you're having. Routines. Huge on routines. And I think if you're going to live with somebody, you need a routine. I've joked about mine. I talk about it on here, and like the fact that I count how many seconds I grind my coffee for, and I have a timer on it, and every morning it's exactly the same thing. I think a lot of couples really don't understand how important that routine is for keeping everything healthy. Like ones with kids, they eventually figured it out. Like, because I know a lot of parents have kids that are colic, which I don't know what that means other than the kids are always screaming and the mom's always drinking.
Oh, the colic is it's a gas problem in their stomach, so they have constant stomach pains.
So my girl has a theory, and that kids that are colic is because parents don't give them enough routine. So their body just kind of goes haywire with that stuff. I have no idea if it's true. It makes sense because just about everybody I've seen who has colic kids tend to be disorganized people. Or maybe just the organized people don't complain about it. Who knows? And I know what's that red pill wisdom is that women are like the most responsible teenager in the room. And so given that routine is a wonderful way of keeping things even keel. Just something simple is like take the dogs out for a walk separate for like an hour once a day, every day, or make your coffee at 6:30 every morning. That routine makes less thinking, and then less thinking is less time for conflict.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, routines is I think that's one of the things that I've seen the most with people because like we actually have like an expression in Europe now called Corona belly.
Corona belly. I haven't. What
Yeah.
is this?
Well, it's just like everyone's been in quarantine and all the gyms have been closed and everyone is working from home. So people are getting a lot less physical activity. So basically everyone is putting on weight.
Everybody's turning into a NEAT.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny because like I didn't think that much because like my routine was I'd go to the gym like 3 to 5 days a week, depending on the program. I just get home from work, grab my gym bag, go to the gym, work out, come home, have a shower, have a meal.
Right.
And just the disruption in that routine is bad enough. But like instead of waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I have to have my morning time and then I have to go to work, commute and everything, I'm getting up like 10 minutes before I normally start working. I grab a coffee and I sit down and I start working.
Oh, so yeah, that doesn't last long.
Of those routines is a bit of a challenge because usually you don't realize how much shit you get done during those commutes because I usually handle emails during commutes.
Really? How do you do that? Yeah. You just like voice to text or are you actually emailing on the...
I'm emailing on my phone.
Oh, fair enough. While you're driving or I guess are you on public transit or somebody driving you?
I don't actually drive. So
okay, that makes sense.
No, I have a driver's license. It's just like it's no point in like a major metropolitan city to ever drive unless you're in the States where like everything's built to drive.
Yeah, outside of the States, you don't have to drive almost at all, and ever.
Plus, I actually like because back when I was commuting via car, I had to after work I had to go out for a walk to get a little bit of cardio in.
Right.
But now during like a normal day, I'm like almost 10,000 steps. And that's about 300, 400, 500 calories, depending on intensity.
Which is like a small meal, yeah.
Which is like 2 beers.
Or 2 beers.
And everyone's doing this. And also the thing is when you're working from home, it's like if you're in the office, yeah, you always have like the office like bowl of sweets or whatever. But they're always kind of bad, so most people don't eat them. When people are at home, I think they tend to eat more out of boredom.
Oh yeah, I even caught myself at one point. You know that thing where you go to the fridge, you open it up, you stare at it, then you close it and go sit back down? I was doing that a couple times till I realized what was going on.
Yeah, like I started actually putting like normally I'm not a huge fruit guy. But I started keeping like fruit salad in my fridge just because then I'd go for the fruit over going out and buying candy and shit.
Dude, I should have bought candy. You know what I ended up having? Roasted peanuts, those big jars, those big planters things I've had.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, that's the problem. One day my girl like just bitched me out. She's like, there's 3 of these jars. And she's like, look at the back. And she looks at the thing for like a third of a cup. It's 300 calories. She started plunking away on her calculator. There's 33,000 calories in that snack you keep grabbing. Cut it out. I'm like, oh, jeez. So I have a feeling my any weight I've gained during this virus is strictly from salted peanuts.
You know, the thing with salted peanuts, that's one of my weaknesses too. And it's just like, it's so easy to just eat those things by the fucking handful.
Yeah.
And you don't think about the fact that a fucking handful of those things is like 600 calories.
Yeah, basically. It's like 2 beers. I'd have been better off just day drinking.
Yeah, but you could have a Big Mac for those calories, man.
Yeah, fair point.
Or like, you could have like, let's see, calories. You could have like a pound of steak.
Yes, I can. I was wondering where you're going with that one. No, but you're right.
It was just like, if you think about like, and that's the thing with alcohol too. Like you just have to, like I was also a fan of choosing your alcohol partially based on calories.
Well, that's why I do like just like a couple fingers of a hard liquor. It's less calories.
Yeah, or like if you have to do something mixed, like either gin tonic with like a 0 tonic water, or like Scotch and Coke with just Coke Zero.
Ooh, that's not bad. I used to use turkey and pepper was my go-to for those kind of things. Gobble gobble. I didn't put that in the book, but when every time we went out to go to pickup, me and my wingman Mike, it was always wild turkey and Dr. Pepper. That was our like go-to drink. I don't know why, but it was just, yeah, it's a routine. Hobbies, another one, by the way. So I don't know if they do it over there in your part of the woods, but over here, flour is sold out because girls are making sourdough now. They actually have a hobby.
Oh yeah, like I know a couple of girls. They started baking hard fucking core, man.
Yeah. Well, it's just it. Most girls don't have hobbies. They go to work and socializing at work is their hobby. And then they come home and they just veg out. And I'm assuming a lot of guys' wives, working wives, same way, that they just don't know what to do with their time. Meanwhile, guys have it easy. You know, it's between video games, there's always some, or reading even, like there's always some hobby a guy will have. Worst case scenario, you can't go to the MMA gym anymore because it's closed down. But there's always something to do.
Well, like the only guy I know ever who didn't have a hobby was my grandfather. And the only reason he didn't have a hobby was that he was a farmer.
Oh, his hobby was not aching.
Yeah, so like, well, he would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He'd go feed all the animals. Then he'd work until like 8 o'clock in the morning. He'd go in, grandma would feed him. He'd have a half an hour nap. He'd go out and he'd work until noon. He'd come in for another meal, have another nap, go back out, and he was working until like 6 o'clock in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
He'd come in, have a meal. He'd have a meal. Then he'd go back out, feed the animals again, and, you know, sort everything there. And he'd come back in at like 9 o'clock at night and just sleep until 4 o'clock in the morning again.
Oh, so, dude, literal plow horse.
So for him, like, I understand why he didn't have a hobby, but every other guy I know has something.
Mm-hmm. But
like,
yeah, girls don't.
No, and I noticed that with the girl too. Like when she got put in isolation, she was in trouble. Because like the only thing she has that's even resembling a fucking hobby is watching Netflix.
Oh yeah, and that gets old real fast.
There's only so much Netflix you can watch before you want to stab someone to death.
Oh, especially because that's the thing. Everybody at the beginning of the quarantine, what happened? That Tiger King show. Everybody got hooked. All the girls got hooked on it, and that's all they talked about. That lasted like a week and a half. And then all of a sudden, flour sold out worldwide, and girls are making sourdough because I noticed YouTube and I should have caught on to this. All of a sudden, sourdough making videos from 2 years ago started coming up. And I'm like, oh, something's up here. And then sure enough, my girl starts talking about it. And I'm like, really? She goes, yeah. And then I had like this big tinfoil hat rant about how the media manipulates you. And I'm like, just so happens you had this idea all of a sudden out of nowhere 2 days after YouTube starts spamming it into us. She's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, ugh. To be fair, though, it's homemade sourdough is delicious. But it does take a lot of work. But that's the problem is that like cooking and eating isn't really a hobby either. Like, I'm not going to complain. But like even reading, I don't know. I miss reading. I guess there's lots of girl gamers now. But just I'm surprised how little people are able to fill idle time. And military guy and me got really good at it. Hurry up and wait taught us. Anybody who's Bull Rush is in the chat, you'll say it yourself. Being able to kill idle time is like a skill that you have to learn. It's a survival trait for the military. And passing it on to your girl is like one of the best gifts you can give her. You want to know what a man brings to a relationship? There's a good one right there. The ability to show you what to do with your idle time.
Yeah, I think that's it. To bring this stuff slightly back on topics, because we've been running our mouth like 44 minutes and we've been on topic like 4 of them. I think that's kind of an important thing with idle time, because a lot of guys have more idle time than they know what to fill with. And they tend to fill that with their girl.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually ends up with you're being too available to her.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you're not a rare commodity. It's not a treat to see you anymore. It's just like, oh, yeah, he always wants to see me, whatever. Like, he's always texting me to hang out.
Yeah, you get taken for granted.
And that's why staying busy is important, even during a fucking quarantine. Just have stuff to do, like being like, oh, okay, I'm going for a walk. You can come along or whatever. Like, have something to do that isn't like the same thing she could do at home, plus you're having sex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. The dog walks. Dude, the dog walks at this point, like she just comes because it's something new and novel. But there is sometimes I can tell where sometimes you just need to get the fuck away from somebody for a bit. And you can tell when it's one of those dog walks when the other person doesn't ask if you want to come.
Yeah.
So understanding those little tells. But the single side of things is actually awesome because John, he's doing his he has a course, Pandemic Pickup. I think it's starting at the end of the weekend here.
Jesus, man.
Dude, that's the thing. It sounded so goofy, but then he starts explaining it to me and it makes perfect sense now. For that same reason we just talked about, girls being bored, and literally single girls that are bored, they can only day drink so much. Eventually they're just going on Tinder and they're risking catching the virus just to stave off boredom with like a little fun with some strangers. And I thought it was going to be girls are terrified wearing full burqa masks at home. Like, no, they're just like, yeah, Chad, good enough. I don't mind. A little flu won't kill me. And I thought it was hilarious. And I can imagine a lot of guys in relationships, if you're too available and too comfortable and your girl is too bored, going on the catwalk or going on the dog walk, running into Chad could possibly cause some relationship issues. Because everybody knows, like single guys, you have to compete with everybody over that girl. In a relationship, if somebody's trying to steal your woman, that guy only has to compete with you. And sometimes he doesn't even have to be better, just different.
Yeah, but again, like the thing I like about the way my life is right now is like I thought about this at some point, and I was like, well, you know, if someone were to take my girl off my hands, I'd have much more time for these other 4 things I want to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I spent some time training her. It would be a pain in the ass to train a new one. Like girls don't like naturally know how to deep throat. But at the same time, it's not
the end of the world.
No, it's like you'll deal with. Like I'm sure if your girl left you, you'd probably be sad because you've been around her for a while. You have to do that messy divorce shit because you went and fucked up.
Yeah, the house, we'd have to split the house. I'd have to downgrade the lifestyle, obviously, because 2 incomes isn't the same. And that's a pain in the ass. I'd probably spend a good day, like that first day. I always say, just spend your first day crying, do what you got to do, and then fucking let it go. So that first 24 hours would be rough, granted.
But the thing is, the one thing I learned from my divorce is design your lifestyle first, then get the girl into it.
Which makes sense, because then you don't have your whole world ripped out from under you if and when she leaves.
Oh, that's not the reason why.
Oh, well, I'm sure you got a stabby reason for it.
No, the reason is very simple. It's when your girl comes into your life and she sees, like, I make sure I had everything. So I have the cigar humidor.
Mm-hmm.
I have the constant, well, not constant drinking, but like somewhat excessive drinking.
You named your blog after Scotch. I get it.
Yeah, I pretty much never lie. So, like, I speak my mind more or less 100% of the time, even more so when I've been drinking, which is most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I have all these things about me, and, like, my huge computer setup here that costs, like, 2 months' salary for a normal person. And all of these things are grandfathered in because these are, you knew this shit when we met.
Yeah.
You don't get to bitch about shit I was doing before we met.
Oh, the rules. Girls don't care about rules, though. They'll still bitch. That's something I learned. And I know you kind of know it, too, but I get what you're saying. It's like you can make whatever rules and they can make perfect sense. The girls just don't care. And so I just find that the best answer is just whatever. She's got to run her mouth and I'm still going to do it. And that's going to be okay because what's she going to do? Fight me? I can beat her in a fight. There's nothing she can do now.
Oh, it's not about the rule. It's about actually, it's about having it set up in a way where she won't bitch about things she knew you were doing. She'll bitch about new stuff you do. And annoys her. Because, like, the stuff you do that you were doing when you first met,
mm-hmm.
She'll associate those things as being you.
Oh.
But the new things you add, like if you were going to the gym, you were smoking cigars, you're drinking scotch, you were running your mouth when she met you, those are not things she'll bitch about. But if you suddenly start doing new shit, those are the things she'll bitch about. Because women have the, like, anchoring points in negotiations, right?
Right. So you're treating your hobbies and lifestyle as the anchor points. Everything goes off of that.
Yeah, and so if I start doing new shit, she'll bitch. Any girl will. But if she won't, like, if you were smoking cigars when you met, my girl hates the smell of cigars and she hates smoking. She still buys me cigars, like, at least twice a month.
Nice. I feel that. I mean, my girl's a vegan and I came from a ranch, so do the math. Keep going. I'm cutting you off.
No, so that's the whole thing. Like, the more anchors you have, the better you are off. And then there is the whole issue with time. It's like, if your girl gets to know you when you're quote unquote busy, she will always tend to anchor to that. Yeah, he's a busy guy.
Yeah, I get that.
So it's
the anchoring helps. I get what you're saying. Like, you set up like the laws of physics for your little universe, and whatever they are, she kind of has to just treat them as normal, which, granted, 100% right. Because I will say, when, like, every girl I've been with, my girl included, will bitch and complain about things when they're first starting. But as soon as it becomes like there's nothing you can do about it, like, big girl panties go on and she gets to work. So I understand that. Once she understands there's no ability for her to control something, the complaining does drop down considerably. Unless, she didn't get sleep that night or something, in which case it's just picking something to fight about. It doesn't really matter what.
Yeah, no, and I had that, like, you never listened to me argument with my girl the other day.
I get those all the time. I can't be bothered.
The thing is, I just don't care. Like, she knew what she was getting into. If she has a problem with it, it's not my fucking problem.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's not even about you don't listen. I think that's the part that most guys forget about spending too much time with their girls, is that they forget that girls are still girls and they start treating them like they would treat themselves, where the conversation is surface level. If she's mad about something, it's that she's mad about. It's not because she's hungry, or it's not because she didn't get sleep last night, or it's not because her mother and her had a fight and then it's just her venting, but it came out in some other thing. Too many guys assume that all of this stuff is surface level. And I think that's where the problems happen, because at surface level, a lot of the stuff seems irrational and just crazy. But once you realize it's just a surrogate for something else, it becomes almost amusing. And like you said, with the anchors, I like what you said on anchors, because it gives you that structure in your own life. So when she's bitching about cigars, like you said, it's like, dude, you knew what you got into when you got with me. So whatever that argument is about, it has nothing to do with cigars. It's usually something else. And then 5 seconds of thinking, you're like, oh, right. The sourdough didn't work out today. Now it makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of simple. And, like, the more time this is why I think time exposure to girls is very well. If your daughter, why should you listen to your daughter? She's a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. They talk and you can't kick them out.
It's like, that's the one thing with women. Like, they run their mouths. Like, I was actually, like, I like to people watch. I think we all do, kind of. And I ended up on the public transport, like, a couple of weeks before this Corona thing. I ended up sitting behind, like, 8 teenage girls.
Oh, you poor bastard.
And I was just listening to their conversation, and they spent 25 minutes talking. Not one piece of information was conveyed in that conversation. So, when you spend a lot of time with women, you have to be aware that to some point you attune to their means of communication. But you have to be careful to not engage in them, because if you start communicating like a girl, like when your girl pulls that, oh, you never listen to me shit, it's better to be like, well, I listen, but most of what you say doesn't make sense. That's a better response than, oh, I'm sorry, babe. Let me try and fix that. What do you want to do? What were you saying?
Yeah. Oh, Amuse Mastery 100% better. And it's funny you mentioned the 18 teenage girls thing. So my girl has been using TikTok more. And now because I'm in the same room, I'm picking up through osmosis. I am not going to lie. I did not know how popular it was just to hear a girl running her mouth about nothing. This like for part 17 story stuff is the most ridiculous stuff I've ever heard. And I can imagine like all these girls are somebody's wife, their girlfriend, or their daughter. And I'm so glad the internet exists for them to vent this stuff, because I would hate to be in that house where the wife's telling the story about how she bought asparagus that day from the store, rambling about the color of the aisles. And it's just a string of it's like a Rollo monologue, but without a point. You know what I mean?
Monologue without hypergamy.
Yeah, no hypergamy, no periods. Let's just go. And of course I'm not going to listen to that.
But to kind of give the inkling, though, like on how much time, like I usually try to not minimize, but I try to keep my girl always like second, third priority. Like work is always work, and what makes me money is always going to be priority one.
Mm-hmm.
Then hobbies, girl, are about equal, because I consider girls to be a hobby.
It's a nice way to put it.
Unless you're a pimp, then they're your work. But I consider girls a hobby.
Okay.
Because usually they cost you money. You don't make money off them.
Mm-hmm.
They can soak up all your time if you let it. And it's equal parts accomplishment and frustration.
Yeah, which is to me, that's the fun. I think that's why I like the hobby idea there, because that's the fun part. If it was just somebody that was easy to get along with 24/7, there was never any conflict, never any fights. I never had to deal with stupid things that I wouldn't deal with. I think I would get bored really quickly.
No, the thing is, like my BPD history, so I'm the anti-fight guy.
Oh yeah, fair enough. You got a PTSD thing though, so I can't fault you for that.
No, it's not a PTSD. It's more of like I tell every girl one specific story for a specific reason. And that's the story of how the relationship with my ex-wife ended and my family's observation on it. Because their observation with me, like I'm a very, very patient guy.
Mm-hmm.
You can push me a long time, but I have this switch in my head. And once that flips over, I will go from being dedicated or loyal or whatever to fuck you, you're dead to me. I'm not even going to see you as a human being. And once that switch is flipped, there's just no coming back from it. And that it's weird, I know, but it's just
that's not weird. That's actually the healthiest boundary enforcement I can think of. But yeah, weird in that it's rare.
So like my girl knows perfectly well that there's this switch in my head. She knows perfectly well that I've already been through like one hell of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows that, okay, if I fuck up here, this guy is liable to tell me to go fuck myself in a nanosecond. And that's like, yeah, and the biggest thing with that is like if your girl knows that specific thing, she's never going to fuck with you ever. If she has any interest in continuing an association with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like, imagine if you had, like, fuck you money, but you kept your job because you enjoy doing it.
Oh, yeah. The BS drops off considerably.
Yeah. Is your boss going to fuck you? No, he's not. Because he knows, like, okay, you know what? He has fuck you money. Like, if I fuck with him, he'll walk out of here. He won't even give me, like, 3 weeks notice. He'll just walk off the lot, tell me to go fuck myself, and he'll go to Tijuana or something and watch a show.
And that's assuming the boss is smart. Because first off, quick shout out. Thank you, John Garcia, $5 super chat. Nothing attached to it. I wish you'd have said something because I could give you like an answer or whatever. But yeah, so a few of the jobs I've had. There was one where just before I started this, where I got laid off, and they brought me into the office. You know when they do layoffs, how they bring into the office with like everything is structured so they think you're going to start stealing laptops, or they need to have security there in case you freak out or something like that. I thought this company didn't realize that I had that kind of like FU money. I didn't really care if they let me go. I would just get something else to do. But it was so strange because they're sitting there, everybody's all stoic doing their thing, and I'm giving the whole like, yeah, that's fine. Why didn't you guys tell me this before I came in? Would have saved me the commute. Or the best example of your being unfuckwithable. That last 6 months after I put in my release with the military, I have never gotten a more calm and relaxed workplace ever. Like, I think my boss yelled at me once after the release, and I just walked out of the office, and it never happened again. I don't even know why she was yelling at me. It's clearly had nothing to do with me. It was somebody else's screw up. And I just started laughing. Like, what are they going to do? Charge me? What did he do? He walked out of my office when I was yelling at him. All right, I'll see you in court.
Same situation I have with my my employer right now, because like they know I could like pay myself like at least 100, 200 grand a year right out from like my own side business.
Mm-hmm.
But I still work for them because I find the work to be enjoyable, and there are certain things you only get to do when you're in the deployment of certain, let's say, divisions. And it doesn't pay. It pays well. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's an easy 6 figures, but it's also a very chill job. Like, it's mostly 20 hours a week for a full pay. So it's enjoyable work. But they know I can do that. So at that point, it's like they're not going to fuck with you just because they know you're there because of a personal interest, but you're not going to stay there if it becomes a pain in the ass.
Yeah, they don't have that leverage point that a lot of people have.
And it's the same thing with girls. It's like, because if you're spending time with the girl, she knows you like spending time with her.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if she knows you have options, she's going to make that time enjoyable rather than a pain in the ass, because you know if she becomes too big of a pain in the ass, you're just going to jet on her.
Well, it's more than that too. It's not even so much the fear of loss, but I think that's the fun part of it. Because I don't know if you were like me. So when I was doing pickup and sport fucking, the chase was more fun with me than the catch. I don't remember just about how any of the girls were in bed, but I remember so many stories about like getting them or getting shot down. And I think for a girl, a part of the fun in their chase is not quite having them, like being able to not like to hook them, but having to fight to keep them. And I think that's the equivalent for them. So part of that is just having good game, not being available, letting the girl have the experience of chasing you and catching you. And you doesn't even need much. It's like you said, I'll go to work and I'll have some hobbies. That's literally all you have to do to have her enjoy the time she has with you more than she would if it was just free.
Yeah, it's also useful to be able to, like, if she makes the initiative to hang out,
mm-hmm.
It's useful to be able to say, sorry, I can't do it that day because I have a corporate thing, or I can't do it that way. I'm hanging out with some of my buddies. I can't do it. Even if you're like, I'm sorry, I can't do it that day. That day I'm gaming with some buddies.
Yeah.
Because funnily enough, gaming has become somewhat of an acceptable hobby right now. But there was a guy here named Jussi, probably Finnish.
Jussi Koloma?
Yeah, he had a good thing about, like, I tried the exciting girlfriend twice, never doing that again. And he has a point about that. Like, it's because, like, the girls that are the most exciting are generally the ones who are the least stable. And one observation I made with men is, like, we kind of want our girls to be stable. Like, you don't want it to be boring. You want them to have a certain level of adventurousness, but you don't want the girl who's like, hey, I just blew our rent on Gucci bags.
Mm-hmm. Or, hey, you know what'd be fun tonight? Let's do some coke. You're like, ugh. I don't know.
Well, I'd be up for that, but I'm in quarantine. With a couple of lots of marching powder right now.
Oh, whatever. I don't know. It's ever since they made weed legal in Canada, I've just had zero interest in it. I think I need it to have a certain amount of illegality to it, or I just won't enjoy it.
No, the thing with me and drugs is, like, I I'm kind of hyper naturally, so I really don't like doing uppers. Like the biggest upper I do is caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I know if I barely sleep as it is. I average 5 hours a day.
Oh wow! And here I was all bragging about my 6. You win,
Like
good sir.
no, but like I naturally tend to wake up between 5 and 6 hours. The only time I sleep longer is if I pull all-nighters, I'll sleep more the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I did some heavy drinking. And at that point, you're not really talking hobby drinking. You're talking like,
Professional.
yeah, like you're not measuring it in like how many bottles of beer you went through. You're measuring it in how many beer bottle openers you went through.
Foreign port experience. I feel ya. I feel ya.
So at that point, I'll sleep longer. But even then, I tend to wake up after about 8 to 9 hours. So I have a lot of time on my hands, but it's just I like to fill that time because I just example like watching movies. If I'm watching movies alone by myself, most of the time I'll watch half the movie to get a feel about the characters. Then I read the synopsis to figure out how it ends, and then I stop watching.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like you at all, man. Granted, for like normal movies, whatever, but there's a lot of movies I love watching just for the how. I don't even care about the characters so much. Like I still love the spaghetti westerns. Quick or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I still watch that one to this day, and it's been out for like 60 years. Just because the way the pacing sets up, it's like listen to that song that you really liked from your childhood, and it's still cool 20 years later. I don't know, guys. Everybody enjoys things how they enjoy things.
No, you don't select older. Sorry to cut you off. You don't select older chicks to skip Blake syndrome. You always go younger, man. Always go younger.
Oh, is somebody wanting to say go for older? Yeah, dude,
No,
older. Go.
Like I think older girls are good for just getting your notch count up, getting some experience. Because like, but the thing is, like my grandfather had this saying: men are like a scotch; they mellow out as we age. Women are like what do you say? I don't think he used milk. I can't remember what his analogy was, but basically, women as they age become harder and harder to deal with.
And that's
Because, like,
100%.
No, but men when we're young, like the last dude I'd want working for me is like 16 to 20. Because you have that youthful exuberance, you have a fuck ton of testosterone. You haven't been punched in the face by life enough to chill the fuck out. So they're very hard to deal with. They're pig-headed. They think they know everything. And I was exactly like this when I was that age.
Oh yeah, me too.
But like I become calmer and calmer as I age because you get a lot of experience with things. You get punched in the face enough. You have to pay like 15 grand to have your teeth replaced after some fucker takes them out with a fucking pool cue.
Well, and you just realize a lot of the time, all that extra movement you do doesn't solve anything. It's just spinning your wheels, so you get more efficient.
Yeah, so that's a big thing. But women as they age, because like I think and this is where I think Rollo's social sexual hierarchy makes perfect sense. Because when we're young, we have it hard, so we have to be hard.
Right.
Like if you think from like a evolutionary standpoint, when we died in our 40s, if we were lucky, you need kind of that try hard, risk embracing, hardcore mindset.
Right.
When they're young, they have it easy. They can get a man in dick, no questions asked, in 3.5 minutes. Not even that most days. Like, I'm pretty sure if a woman went out and went into a 7-Eleven queue and asked the guys, "Will you fuck me up against the fucking
dumpster?"
Not even against the fucking coolers in the back. Most guys would be like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, let's go."
Yeah.
Try
those guys that aren't soy.
And I think but as women age, they start to become bitter because they realized their advantageous position early on and how they fail to capitalize on it. And that's how you get Karens.
I was gonna say that was my thing about the older girls. Like Karen is a meme, and it's a real meme. Everybody's been raised by a helicopter parent Karen or has dated a Karen. I don't find any of them like there's no redeeming qualities, which it's counterintuitive. You'd think like if I got older and as I got older I got less attractive, you'd think I would be more pleasant to compensate. But again, these broads are like, nope, doubling down on cunty. Right? Fair enough.
Well, it's like the hot crazy matrix. Everyone knows that it's a meme, but it's kind of true. You can be, if you're hot as balls, you can be very crazy and get away with it.
Yeah. Well, like there's no incentive not to be.
Yeah, well, that's where the body positivity activists and the feminists fail because they're cunts and they're unattractive.
Damn, only half the puzzle.
And if they were like the one thing I actually find as a good quality in any woman I date, being relaxed and pleasant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
And I think being positive because like I can't stand being around negative people. Just on the baseline, it's you want to be with people who see, and I know it's such a corporate thing, but you don't want to be around people who see problems. You want to be around people who see potential solutions.
Well, it's not just that. A lot of the times it's just how it's framed. Like if you're with somebody who complains all the time and it's stuff that's arguably good or bad, if they want to perceive everything as negative, it grates on you. I don't even care about the problem solution thing. Like I'm a guy, I can solve my own problems, but just, yeah, we ran out of gas. Oh no, we had to walk 3 miles to this hotel room and have a lot of fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like every experience is going to have good and bad parts. And the person who only focuses on the negative parts, it's just annoying. Yeah, no, let's go with your corporate one. Screw it. I mumbled that.
No, but I agree with you. And it's kind of like, you want to, like, it's good to, because life isn't going to be easy all the time. And you want to be with someone who can actually roll with punches a bit.
Actually, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And it's also about, like, we'll answer your question in a minute, Doug. I think it's a good question. But I just want to finish my thought here for a second. And because I think you need to look at those qualities that were ingrained in a person early on, because those are most likely to always be there. Like if someone was raised with parents who were hard workers, odds are they're also a hard worker unless they were spoiled.
Right.
If both their parents are independent people, odds are their kid is too. And you have to kind of mirror this to your own personality. Like I'm a very independent guy. I can't stand clingy chicks. They soak up too much of my time, too much of my energy, and I have to spend too much time
placating.
Yeah, placating, or just like, even if it's just like liking their fucking Instagram posts. I can't be bothered. I take 3 weeks to return phone calls from my dad, and he's in his 70s. Unless it's the hospital, it's nothing. So I'm just that kind of guy. So I like to find girls who kind of mirror that part of it. And I think that's kind of important too with like time, especially with time around women or time with women. It's finding someone who kind of mirrors your own ideas of how you want to spend your time.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were going to work 100 hours a week, you can't date a chick who's on unemployment. Because those 100 hours you spend at work, she's spending alone. She's going to want to spend time with you about that. Like I had a friend, he was working a manual job at the time, and he walked like 30,000 steps a day. His girl was on sick leave at the time. First thing she did when he walked in the house was, "Hey, babe, want to go for a walk?" Like the last thing you want to do, that's like asking a guy who just spent like 12 hours on a shooting range, hey, babe, you want to go to the shooting range? No, fuck no.
Your chef gets home from work. Hey, make me a sandwich. No. KD's right over there. Fill your boots. No, I agree. That's the weird. That's the solipsism part too, because she doesn't really consider anything. It was just, I want it. This is what I want, and there's no way he wouldn't want it.
Well, I think that's the major issue though with like a lot of guys. Their one and only selection criteria is, will she touch my penis?
Mm-hmm. AKA the good quality woman.
Nothing else matters. And for me, it's just like, yeah, well, if I want my penis touched, like there are massage joints all over the place here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an issue. It's a bigger, let's say, quality of life aspects and what her personality is like and how her priorities are is a bigger issue for me.
Yeah, well, once you get past a plate, like I said, her willing to touch me is all I need for that first 8 hours, or for like the occasional once a month booty call, something like that. You're right. That's all that you need. But if you're moving past that to even a point where you're seeing a plate a couple times a week, you're right in that it's got to fit with lifestyle. She's got to be pleasant. She's got to be, I was going to start giving that rich list about how to be a beautiful woman or some shit. But yeah, all those things eventually matter. But those are the outside of sex, what do you offer criteria?
Well, I think those are the most important criteria if you're considering spending time with her, doing anything other than Netflix and chill.
Oh, God, yeah. I don't think a lot of girls understand that, though.
Like, if you're only doing Netflix and chill, then it doesn't really matter. Like, let's be honest. Like, if you're only fucking her once a week, maybe once every other week, you don't care what she's doing with the other, like, 167 hours and 58 minutes.
Yeah, of course not.
But if you're actually going to spend more time with her, and especially if you're going to invest in her, then those things start to matter a lot more. Because, like, let's be honest, most women are bad at sex.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Women can't be good at sex. Guys can be good at sex, and women can be available.
No, but women can be good at sex, but you need someone to train them, because like most guys are just so happy to have sex that they don't actually care about the quality. They don't care if it's starfish duty sex.
Yeah.
So you actually have to kind of train them into actually being able to put some work into it. Like most girls, like the biggest like work they'll put into sex is like being on top.
So noble. Oh, I know it's lazy. Rollo has an article on that. That's the show up, bring beer attitude, or girl game. I think it was girl game was the article.
Yeah, but that's what most of them do. It's not a huge issue if you're like with plates. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, I actually dumped a plate at one point because she wore so much perfume. She stank out my sheets, which meant I had to wash them an extra time every week, because you can't have like another girl come over and that your fucking sheets smell like fucking Chanel.
See, you'd think. Didn't really bother me too much though, or it didn't really set me off. But I was a metrosexual. They might have assumed it was my flavor at the time.
Yeah, you know, it's also like I can't stand like heavy fucking perfume. It's like one of the most offensive things in the world to me, almost as close as using venison to cook chili.
Oh yeah, I heard about that one.
Yeah, and
no, I agree. They stink up our elevator occasionally in the building here, but I agree. It's that it's not. It's like the American thing where, hey, this is good. Let's put 7 pounds of it in there. That's got to be better. And you're like, that's way too much. It's like that.
Yeah, that's why I had that with Dennis Demore yesterday, because he talked about pizza, and it's like, yeah, if you have the American version, it's make a pizza and then put more cheese on it, then put more cheese on it, then put more cheese on it, then more cheese, and then you're done. It's like I love a lot of different, like I'm a big barbecue fan. I love barbecue. I think it's probably one of the most American foods you can have. And it's also really good. But at the same time, though, it's better when it's simple. Like get a good brisket or some good ribs, just like a side of coleslaw or something.
Yeah.
Because you get sweetness from the meat, you get the kind of spicy slash a sour from the coleslaw, and you have a nice balance.
Yeah, and the slaw is light and the meat is heavy, so you're not end up having a meal where you have to lie down and sleep afterwards. The whole thing just works.
Yeah, okay. Let's get to Doug's question before we go full nerd. We only have like 40 minutes left until we're doing that other show. So she recently broke up late. We work in the same building. She wanted more time together. I gave it, and she then wanted time apart. I suspect she's seeing how they end up building. Yeah, she was shit testing you.
Yeah. Everybody gets the we need to spend more time together. You just ignore it. I like the Ryan's rule for this. I haven't brought it out in forever. Like anytime she says something about how she feels, just add right now at the end of it, and it makes sense. And if she says, I won't do this, just add with you at the end of it, and it makes all these conversations make sense. She wanted to spend more time together right now. That was it, not in general. And then you gave it a bunch to her, and then she just got bored. Well, I just won. All right, no. And dude, in my book, Melissa, I don't know if you've gotten to the part yet where I talk about Melissa, but that was exactly the conversation Melissa had. I remember once, it was very clear. I said it was something to like, well, that must be nice. You managed to stank me twice. And she's like, yeah, it wasn't hard. And then like, it was almost like a switch flipped in her head. And she got so cunty right after that. I don't think they want what they say they want. They just don't. It's just how they feel.
No, like I made a joke about that like years ago when I first started the blog. Like, what I really admire about women is their ability to know what they want second by second.
That's so well put.
Because it's just like they switch all the time. Like my girl got really into like feng shui a while back, and she wanted to feng shui my entire apartment. Like 1 week later, she completely forgot about it.
That's too funny.
But you know, a good comment, by the way, if like I wanted us to spend more time together, just answer, oh yeah, that's awesome, man. I could really use a blowjob a day.
Yeah, amuse mastery is so undervalued, and it's so useful in that one. Just reflect. She wants to emote that stuff. That's fine. You know exactly what the score is. She feels that way right now, but she doesn't actually want it because she'd get bored and start doing somebody else in the building. And so you just kind of laugh.
The same thing with like, if she ever asks you, why do you like blowjobs so much? Just tell her, oh, I get a couple of minutes of peace and quiet.
But yeah, like you don't take it seriously. So why would they take it seriously? Because these things, these stupid little things, like we need to spend more time together, turn into full-blown arguments so often. Because the guy takes what the girl's saying seriously. And then now that problem is serious, now you have a problem. Both parties agreed it's a problem, and now you can fight about it. As opposed to your line, Carl, because then it's just, I have a problem. Well, that's nice. Well, maybe I didn't have a problem because he doesn't seem to think it's a problem.
Also, I've also found like Mean Girls lines, and I know it's corny, but they work so well. Because every girl has seen that movie at least like 5-6 times.
I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to watch half of it to understand the characters and then read the synopsis.
No, but like they have so many good memes in there. And my favorite is like there's this girl in there, like Gretchen, and she's trying to make like her own slang term. And at one turn, one of the girls is like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not gonna happen. And like the girl tried to have that, oh, we need to talk, what are we situation. And it's like, stop trying to make a relationship happen. It's not going to happen. And do that in like a really girly, bitchy voice. Most of them crack up and they forget what they were talking about.
Feelings, very, very, very fleeting. And I guess here we got to deal with this one because I don't understand it. Schopenhauer, how's the Etruscan slumber going? I have a feeling I missed something in one of my Greek philosophy books.
The one you read?
I've read 2, thank you very much. I even have a book over on the bookshelf. It says the philosophy book. It says all of them. I've read it.
If you want a good one, what I tend to recommend, it's Bertrand Russell, The History of Western Philosophy. It's a really, really good book. It's thick as fuck. It's a long read, but it kind of gives you the cliff notes on everything.
Oh yeah. Well, what's the one I got now? Is that the one I have? Hold on a second here. No, it's definitely not that one. But we'll see. Like I said, I'll add it to the list. Visual philosophy. We'll get into the normal one. I've been really turned off of it though, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a certain person that was in this space that was all up for talking about philosophy all the time. Never did anything sexual strategy wise, but it's kind of turned me off of reading any of it, just because I'm seeing the result of people who read too much of it, and I don't want to be that guy.
Well, I've read too much of it for sure, but I think it's useful just for learning how to your mind.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like the Scottish Enlightenment stuff, huge fan of it. Like Hume and that. I'm a huge fan of like early century stuff. I know people don't consider Twain to be a philosopher, but I would say for the most part he is. It's just the part I enjoyed about him is how he makes it in such peasant language, I guess, like peasant simple language. He really does simplify it, so you realize that if he were to make a philosophical point that's up his own ass, you would see it instantly because the language doesn't obscure it.
Well, I also think you would probably like Tom Paine then.
Thomas Paine? Yeah. I've started reading. But then the continental stuff too, like De La Rochefort, his I was a fan of, but it was basically 48 Laws of Power for the 1600s too. But that's the problem. There's so many books I have to get caught up on. You're never going to read them all. So there's always going to be something I have to have read and I didn't.
If you had to pick only one philosophical school, I'd probably go analytical over continental.
What's you mean, like the pragmatists in the States, or?
No, like you had more or less like you had two philosophical traditions in Europe. You had like the English and the German, and the English went more towards analytical philosophy, figuring out what was true.
Oh, so yeah, we're talking Scottish versus continental Enlightenment stuff. Yeah, we've already talked. We agreed on that one 100%.
But just because I think it's useful to read guys like Nietzsche and Sartre and Foucault and so on, but I just think you need to have the ballast before you read them. Like if the first guy you read is Evola, you're probably going to end up being kind of stupid. Well, because philosophy is literally standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
So everything, like especially if you're reading Nietzsche, you need to have read a lot because Nietzsche was incredibly well read. So he references a lot of philosophers, both explicitly and implicitly, in when he writes.
Theology, though, right?
Yeah, they all do, but like some are like Spinoza is probably the one who's most explicit about it because he does like a whole start to ethics, I think it is, where he kind of lists all his premises, all his source references.
Oh, that's kind of rare.
He's easy to read. Yeah, it wasn't common back then, and Aristotle is another like great collector because he basically read everything before he started writing himself.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, people build on others, and Nietzsche builds a lot upon the philosophers that came before him, especially Kant. And if you haven't read Kant, you won't really get Nietzsche. But if you read Kant and you haven't read a lot of the Greeks, I would probably go with you need to have read Aristotle for sure.
Yeah.
You need to have read Plato. Probably some of the Stoics. Yeah, it's too.
But I mean, Plato Republic, that's if you haven't read that, then you really have no interest in this anyway. That's kind of that's the book. That's the rational male for the philosophy world. Plato's Republic. Aristotle's On and Man in the Universe. Like I said, that's what.
Well, I think
Man in the Universe.
Like for Nietzsche, you need to read Categories. That's Aristotle, I think. It gets to a point, and when you've read a lot of shit, where you can't actually remember who wrote what. Like Kant is easy because he only wrote two things.
Imperatives.
Oh, critique of pure reason and critique of practical reason. And one is a critique of pure logic. The other one's a critique of empiricism, more or less.
Yeah, well, here's the problem I have with that too. So I've noticed this. Most guys who read philosophy and they make an identity out of it, they can't actually tell you anything philosophical. They can quote it, but they don't really understand it. Well, this person said this. Well, this person said that. I'm like, dude, if you can't word it into your own language, then did you actually learn it, or are you just able to memorize it?
No, at that point, just go Goodwill Hunting on them.
But that's the point. That's where you end up with this like TRP Red Glow Gang scenario where it's a bunch of people arguing over the premise that neither person agreed to. Nobody's getting laid. Nobody's made a single dollar of income, and they're just wasting their time. Meanwhile, 2 years later, somebody else is sitting there talking about women smell good, and they're actually succeeding in life.
Yeah, Conk's right here, by the way, when he says philosophy degrees are gamma male crack. Like, I would never in my life get a philosophy degree.
The only reason I could see it being useful is if you were going to be a lawyer, because that's what do you have? There's like a set amount of degrees you can get and then take your LSAT, and I think philosophy is one of them.
Yeah, like if you're going to be a lawyer, it's probably smart to get it because you need to learn logic and rhetoric.
Yeah,
more than anything. But I would never get the degree because unless I was going to be a lawyer, and lawyers are cancer, I would never get it just because it's not easy to make money off it. Now, philosophy, I disagree with John on this. I think it's useful in the sense that it helps you structure your mind.
Yeah. But that's just it. It's a utilitarian thing. There's a purpose for it. You're reading something with a purpose, not just for the sake of it.
Because like the interesting thing about John saying philosophy is not useful, there's actually been a debate on that inside philosophy.
Yeah.
And once you read those debates, like one of the most enjoyable debates I've ever read was like I love watching Christopher Hitchens debate, of course.
Everybody does.
That's for a different reason. That's just like, it's like intellectual
bullying.
Housewives.
Yeah, it's intellectual bullying. It's a bunch of guys saying, can't you just feel better? And this guy with like, here's my scotch, fuck you. And here's why.
Yeah, exactly. So I enjoy that one. But if you read the evolution debates where they were held at Oxford, and you had, what was his name again? Darwin's bulldog. I'll find his name.
Kind of remember what you're talking about.
No, it's, Thomas Huxley. They were a lot of debates surrounding Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. And that was a major reason why it was actually accepted, was the fact that they held those debates where it was generally Huxley versus various religious people.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the reason we have evolution as powerful as today, and I think that's a major building block in our society. Like, I think if you had to credit, like a lot of people like to credit like the Bible and Christianity with the evolution of Western civilization as a dominant one on our planet.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that it's four specific eras. You start with the Greeks, then the Romans, then the Renaissance, and then the Enlightenment.
Which is all just everybody trying to pretend to be the Greeks.
Well, yes and no. I think the reason why, and
then the architecture, there's no yes and no. Even the architecture of the Renaissance was trying to get the Greek aesthetic back.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, but it's essentially, and we're so far off topic now, it's insane. But I think it's an interesting discussion, regardless. And because the Greeks came up with a lot of the right ideas. There's a reason why I say that, take fucking Tesla. He died like 120 years ago or something. and put him in a modern electrical engineering department, he would struggle to follow the discussions.
Yeah.
Take Plato and Aristotle and put them in a modern philosophy or sociology room, and they would actually be able to follow and contribute to the discussion, because these are kind of eternal discussions we need to have.
Yeah, and people don't change.
And the Greeks came up with the best solutions that we know up until this point. We might find better ones, because I hate communism, but I do think Marx has a certain valid point that at some point we'll reach a situation where, because the major problem with I'm rambling. The major problem with Marxism is that demand exceeds supply. You have scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
If you could make supply exceed demand, you could literally give everyone everything and it wouldn't present an economic problem.
Right. Well, that's all economics is how do you split things up?
And with a mixture of automation and technology, let's say we could start to mine other planets. So you no longer have resource scarcity. You could get over on solar energy instead of using, because solar energy is more or less, you can't use it all up within like a normal time frame. It's in billions of years.
Right.
And you can mine asteroids, so you have no mineral scarcity, and you have automation, so no one actually has to work.
Yeah, what do you do then?
At that
I would argue
point,
we have that to a certain level right now too.
Yeah, we'll reach that within 100 years. I'm convinced of that. So at that point, the only thing left are those everlasting questions.
The navel gazing.
And but I think that's the reason why we I saw some guy who put out a meme like, your grandfather was asked to storm the beaches of Normandy and he didn't bitch. Why are you bitching about having to stay at home for a week?
Well, that's just it. And I think this is why this is going to be tying philosophy back to something practical here. Everybody seems to forget the point that the point of work isn't to make stuff so that we can be happy and get the things we want. A lot of people treat work as their identity. And I've noticed this. You know how a lot of guys are complaining that girls are taking over the workforce. They're not as good at work as men, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing that I've noticed from a lot of girls. A lot of my friends and their wives, some people got furloughed, some people didn't. But a lot of the girls, they aren't mad because they don't have a job. They're mad because they don't have something to do. And a lot of the guys losing their job, it wasn't so much that it wasn't about the money. It's about they like the idea of being productive. And even though a lot of these people are like HR, jobs you don't care about, they arguably do nothing and they may even drag the company down. But people like the idea of being useful. And I think we add that automation that you're talking about. And this is why I'm noticing with the furloughs now. Now that companies have to cut back, anybody who's not essential is just getting laid off. But people aren't starving in the streets, but they're not happy because they're not useful. And hobbies are good for that. Like you could be writing a book right now. You can do your own creative works. But all this economic talk ignores that simple fact that humans like to have something to do that has more meaning than just, getting off. And this is why I don't like getting too much into the weeds, the philosophy stuff. While I'm as entertained by it as you are, it kind of misses that practical human element that seems to be right in front of us. And we always get lost in some weird discussion about, well, is this imperative this? Or, is the means of capitalism this? And in reality, it's just people need meaning, whether they want it or not, and whether it's useful or not. Even some bullshit guy in an HR department that hates his life at least gets meaning from it.
Well, it's one of those things you notice when you work corporate for a long time. You start to wonder, we could, at one point, I advocated firing 60% of the workforce at a major company.
Yeah, which you probably could have done and not lost anything.
Well, just on the basis that they were in financial trouble, right?
Right.
So I was hired to come in and take a look at what they were doing. And what I saw was if you look at any company, you have two departments that's matter. It's production and sales.
Right.
And then you have some support departments that are there to either facilitate production or sales.
Yeah. Get all the obstacles out of the way.
Yeah, so like you need to have like an accounting department because someone needs to send out the bills and make sure they're paid. And someone needs to, pay your bills. You need someone in logistics to make sure that you have like stuff coming in to produce the goods you're selling or whatever you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
So in like a consultancy, that's HR. In finance, it's HR. And in a production company, that's just basically inbound logistics and procurement.
Yep.
Those are the only
people to keep all the computers running.
Yeah, and you can, and then you have to look at like what could be outsourced. Like it's becoming very common to outsource computing
Mm-hmm.
and networking infrastructure. Like the only people I would advocate to keep around are probably your security guys, IT security,
which makes sense,
and maybe like one or two networking engineers if you run like an operation that's vulnerable if it goes down. Like if you run a website selling olive oil, it's probably not a disaster if you go down for 2 hours. If you run NASDAQ or like a self-storage brokerage, going down for 2 hours will get your ass fucking sued.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bit dependent, but most companies and most people, I would say, tend to add too much support. And like you can liken it to like I went through all the different shit I pay a subscription to a while back. Because it's very easy to sit there and you have Netflix, you have Amazon Prime, you have Spotify, you have Hulu, and you don't watch any of them.
Right.
But you still pay them like $10 a month. So the result is I cut everything except my Netflix because I actually use Netflix. And it's the same thing with companies. It's very easy to think like, yeah, we kind of need to do more stuff with team building. We'll hire someone in HR to do team building. It's very easy to say like, we have more billables this month. We'll hire someone extra in the accounting department.
Fair enough.
And all this comes down to like, you have to make conscious decisions with resources and time because all money is time. Like money is a representation of time spent doing something that someone else would pay for, right?
Right.
And I'm not sure if I'm making sense here because I'm kind of going on a tangent, but it's anything you invest your time into needs to have a certain return on it in order for it to be worth investing time in. That's your girl, that's your job, that's your side hustle like this one. And like, I'll be honest, like back when the whole 21 Spurg out went on for full, I strongly considered like deleting the blog and the Twitter and everything.
Glad you did.
Because like, yeah, so am I. But it's like, because like this stuff, it makes me a little beer money on the side. And that's not, I'm thankful for everyone who buys my books and stuff, but it's not a full-time income to put it like that.
Not with the hassle.
When something becomes a pain in the ass to deal with over what you're getting back, that's when the balance comes out of whack. And I think I cover this in one, if not both, the gendernomics books. And it's the same thing with girls. Like if she requires you to invest 20 hours a week in her, so you can have 30 minutes of sex, not worth it. However, if she comes to your place, she brings beer, she brings dinner, she cleans her apartment and sleeps with you, then leaves, so you can sleep peacefully alone, that's good. That's a good return on your investment.
Yeah. Speaking of investments, I'm going to get this super chat out of the way here from Sam. He's asking, what brand of coffee press do you recommend? And honestly, they're all the same. The only thing, the one I used to have for the longest time was just that plain old Starbucks one, because the only thing that bugs me about coffee presses is when the spout is too low, because then when you do the plunge, some grinds will occasionally fly up in the thing, and the Starbucks one was pretty cylindrical. But Like I said, I got a Le Creuset stoneware one. It's just as good as the Starbucks one, except for it costs 4 times as much. And it matches the cups. They're all the same. Literally. What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, same thing with weed grinders, by the way.
Fair point. And then a maid in Bangkok is cheaper than a date night.
No, the thing is, like, I can't trash talk you spending like money on a Le Creuset coffee press because like I have a $2,000 fucking espresso machine.
But that's the thing. Here's back to your risk reward or reward and value for it. I don't mind going hog on something. Like I use that thing every day. The coffee press is every day. Stoneware is nice because it keeps things hotter for longer. So there's nice parts about it. And I'm sure I would be just as happy with a $2 coffee press that's made out of plastic, but I kind of like signaling what's important to me by putting most of my time in towards it.
Yeah, like I agree with you. It's the same thing with, like, I do the same thing with like my cigar stuff. Like I have good quality cigar lighters. I have good quality cutters. Like if you come into my place, I have a ton of different glassware for different types of drinks. Because like a drink needs, like even beer, like if you go to a Belgian pub, like a proper Belgian pub, they have like a glass for every single beer to get the maximum flavor out of it. And same thing with drinks, like try serving a gin tonic in a goblet instead of a highball glass.
Who has a goblet?
Oh, I have goblets, by the way. It's Belgian beers, man. Belgian beers.
All right, fair enough. Is it made? All I can think of is the Last Crusade with that wooden goblet, the Cup of Christ.
Yeah, mine are glass, but anyway, it's you signal what's important to you by the investments you make in those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to also look at, like, to go back to girls, is like, look what she's invested her money in. But look beyond the surface, because I know a lot of girls with high-end kitchens who can't cook for shit.
Yep.
Because for men, usually what we invest a lot of money into are things we're going to use a lot. Like you have expensive tools because you use them a lot. You have like an expensive coffee press because you use it every day. Men are pragmatic like that. Women are more about signaling. They like if you say men are 80% pragmatic, 20% signaling, women are 80% signaling, 20% pragmatic.
100%. Because status is all they have. They never in caveman days they weren't busy hunting tigers and lions. They were gathering berries and signaling they were the best chick out of the bunch. So Cave Chad would sleep with them. So it makes sense.
And like even with girls, like let's say you get a girl who can't cook because they're plentiful now. But let's say if she could only do one dish that she can do well, let her do that. And if just a willingness to do that for you is a good sign. Because you can learn how to cook more dishes. What you're looking for is the willingness to invest in something that's non-selfish.
Yeah.
Because with girls, you need to look at how are they investing their time. Are they investing it in learning things that are useful to them and to others? Like, I say the biggest fucking red flag out of all the red flags is if you take a girl to meet your family and all the girls are in the kitchen cooking a meal together, does she go in there and offer to help? Because if she doesn't, that's a bad sign. And if at the end of
dinner.
Okay, you know, I've had like 3 beers now, but what the fuck's John drinking?
What, John? Where is he?
Yeah, he's in chat, like biggest red flag, she's breathing.
What are you talking about, John? I think that's edgy for the sake of it. Jeez.
Yeah, no, but like I think it's a good thing to like girls with no girlfriends, and if all the girls in a group are doing something, if she doesn't try to join.
Well, I'm gonna push back on that one. funny enough, it's in the book. It's right at the end where I was talking about how I was dating a girl and I'd bring her around with my buddies. And I thought, this is great. I could go have barbecues with my buddies. And then she'll go hang out with the girls in the living room, snack on the snack tray and stuff. And she got mad. She's like, don't ever put me with the girls again. I want to go drink out with the boys. There is something, this is why it's always subtle. Like there's something to a girl who's independent enough not to just want to do what the other girls are doing. And here's why. Remember that thing where the best case of divorce, like the best indicator you're getting a divorce is like a guy losing his job or a girl in her social circle getting a divorce? If you get a girl that's too much of the herd, too much of trying to please, you get that where a lot of what she does is outside of your control or influence. If she is all about her girlfriends, well, when her girlfriends decide to cheat, she's going to cheat. If her girlfriends decide to leave, she's going to leave. Well, it's nice to see a girl that's a pleaser. I think you really need to temper that with doing it at the expense of what's in front of her damn eyes. Because I see way too many guys getting separations and divorces where they arguably are doing everything right and everything good, and the girl should be happy, but she just literally throws it away because she hates conflict with her peer group so much that she would rather just nuke her entire relationship than risk a conflict with Karen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and it's kind of like the hard separation, because like, what I'm looking for is, can she actually function within a peer group? But you kind of have the, like with Robert Greene, I think he has like the kind of like a thesis antithesis of like his principles, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing here. You want a girl who can work within a peer group, and especially with the women in your family. Because if the women in your family is like, why is he dating that bitch? That relationship is not working out, period. Ever.
If the guy doesn't stand up, that's the same thing. If the guy has frame, though, he can kind of get his family to like, shut the fuck up. I got this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. But it's just a general like rule of thumb. So it's.
I get you. Like a heuristic. I get it.
It's a balance thing between the two. Like if a girl was like, if I had a girl and she was like, oh yeah, fuck the women in your family, I'm going to drink with the boys, like right off the bat, and didn't even try to have a conversation, I'd be nervous. But if she went in and she came back and like, okay, you know, those hosts are all talking about fucking Desperate Housewives, I'm just going to stay here and have a beer with you guys, then I'd be cool with it.
I get it then. Yeah, it's the effort. It's not even she has to do this or has to do that, but show that she's invested in you enough to try. Can't go wrong with that.
Because it's also with like, especially with like some families, and like a lot of my family is quite conservative, so and tends towards the traditional model. So like a girl not coming in to help the other girls prepare dinner, and like most of the time, like if grandma's cooking, she'll tell all the other women in the family to go fuck themselves. She's cooking. Yeah, don't fuck her food up. But she appreciates the fact that they came in and offered to help her. And I think that's a good sign, because it's, if you think about it from like an evolutionary standpoint, it's collective effort. Like everyone had to like pull their weight.
Right.
And you want to see like what your family, I think, is implicitly looking for is this person going to pull their weight, or are they going to be a drain on our resources?
That's a good point.
Because that would have been like death or survive. Like if you get someone who's like pulling their weight and punching above their weight class, so to speak, that's a win for your family. If you get someone who sits in the cave and just gossips all day and starts drama, that's a loss for your family. And I think I think that's how we judge it from an evolutionary standpoint. Like men look at women and look for that hip waist ratio and etc. for fertility.
Right.
And families look at it in an extended way. They look for fertility as well, I think, but they also look for, is this person an asset or a liability?
It's a good way of putting it.
Because like most men are a positive resource for their family. And if you have a man who's like let's say he's a really good dude, so he does like 120% of an average guy.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets together with a girl who does 60%, that's a net loss for the family. If he gets together with a girl who's like 90% or above, they can accept that because she's not like a huge strain. Yeah, he's not doing as well, but we're not losing out on a ton. But if your girl is like a total drain on your fucking family, they're not going to accept her. And if even worse, they're going to think like, well, what about her family? What about the kids they have? Are they going to be fucking freeloaders too?
Freeloaders, that's such like a boomer. Yeah, you freeloader. Get a job and a haircut.
Yeah, it's a boomer phrase, but I think it's actually on point because if you look at how the smart people were doing marriages back in the day,
yeah,
it was all about maintaining control over resources and forging alliances with people with equal or more resources to maintain your power base.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're kind of naturally, and I think we're naturally evolved to look at it that way. But I think as men, we can be tricked by a freeloading hoe who gives good head and has nice tits.
That is true. We all have that.
And our family knows that. So their goal is to, okay, yeah, she has nice tits. She's probably good in bed. But she spends all his money. But then again, that comes back to like the Carl real cynical view on humanity where everyone's just a sociopath who's out to get your shit.
Yeah, they only don't want her around because they get it. All right, well, we're segue here to Charles Alexander's $20 super chat. I like this one because it's a good example of frame. At work, everyone has to show me their employee ID to enter the property. This one guy does it begrudgingly and sarcastically. Does he do this because he's trying to maintain his frame while in a way submitting to mine? No. He's doing that because he's powerless and he's being indignant. I think I'm pronouncing that one right. If you guys haven't read it, Venkatesh Rao has a great article on the Gervais principle. And I think Carl knows where I'm going with this one. Where you have sociopaths, the clueless, and the losers. The idea is sociopaths. Sorry, what's that?
I think this guy's probably a loser.
Oh, guaranteed he is. That's the thing. The guy knows that he has no power in the situation, economically no power. He can't influence you. He can't make anybody do what he wants them to do. And because he's that loser, he kind of lashes out in that way that makes him feel like he's in some control, like he's above it all. Like, yeah, I'll do it, but I don't really like it. But in reality, it's like, dude, you could literally tell that guy to get out of the building and he has to go. And for a lot of guys, especially gamma males, they can't handle that. Military is good for that. You can hold frame and still be subordinate. It's not what frame is. Frame isn't about being the top guy in the room. And if you're the top guy in the room, you probably earned it. Frame is about understanding. It's like the serenity prayer. I understand the things you can control and you change them if you can. And if you can't, you just learn to live with it. In his case, it's just showing an ID to enter the property. It has as much importance as anything. If he wants in the property, he shows his ID. He doesn't have this same begrudgingness when the cops ask to see his ID when he pulls them over. Or maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe you'll see him get shot in 3 months, giving the cop a bunch of attitude about it. But we always have to cede some amount of authority to somebody else in our life. It's always going to happen. How you deal with it, though, shows how able you are to accept your status in the pecking order, I think was the best way to put it. He can't accept that he has to show you ID. That small power struggle right there, that's not frame. That's not frame at all. That's him lashing out because he feels like he's more important than he actually is.
Well, the thing is, like, I'd say fire him. And, like, the reason is, like, I'm not trying to cost some guy's job. No, those are not my kids. There's a playground here. I'm just doing that to show that I don't have any sex offender judgment against me, unlike some other people in the manosphere.
Shots fired.
But anyway, the reason why I said fire him, I don't want to cost someone their income, but the reason is like that's not a loss of face or a loss of dignity to show an ID badge. That's just something you have to do. It's part of living in a society.
Yeah.
Like if some guy is yelling and screaming at me, at that point, it's a time to assert frame if they're being openly disrespectful and I didn't fuck up. And I think the military is great for learning this, to be honest with you, because there are times where it's fine to lose frame if someone's being an absolute cunt.
Oh, you're talking about the Tiller Flats arguments.
But there's also a point where you have to accept the chain of command. And I always find people who are not disagreeable with, but disrespectful or can't stand to be anything but the top dog to be a problem. Because those are like the last fucking guys you want to work with. Because
ask us how we know.
Well, good followership is perhaps even more important than good leadership, just on the basis that if you have a mediocre leader, you can punch well above your weight in performance if you have really good followership.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the best leader in the world. If everyone has shit followership, you won't be able to do a damn thing.
Oh, I agree. And everybody's jockeying for position and sabotaging each other so the other guy can win. It's like crab bucket.
And to me, like the whole idea of not being willing to show your ID badge, or doing it sarcastically and begrudgingly, assuming your business is big enough, I just find that to be a pointless act. Like I had a thing at a former employer where I refused to wear an ID badge. And the reason for that was very simple. Everyone at that job knew who I was. Like we were like 100 people, and all of them knew me. I knew all of them personally. Not even like I shook his hand once at the Christmas party 3 years ago. It was like I know the name of that guy's kids. Like the idea of me wearing an ID badge at that place was just pointless. It was like regulation for the sake of having regulation rather than for a pragmatic purpose. If you have a business where you actually need to have ID checks on employees and he's being begrudgingly about it, well, fuck him. Because he's basically signaling to you, I don't give a shit about you, but I don't have any other options. And those are the kind of guys who come to work and sit there watching Pornhub all day. Like, if you're not going to fire him immediately, I'd say just keep tabs on him and see how he spends his time. Like, don't do it overtly, like make him check in and shit, but like have one of your IT guys keep track of his computer. If you can do that within the law, of course. Like some places you have to like have grounds for suspicion and shit, but I don't know. I just strongly dislike men who do not get the quote unquote gang mentality.
Oh, like 100%.
Because like a lot of the time, like you don't want to be the leader. Like, yeah, usually if you're the leader, you get a little bit extra in your paycheck. You may get some extra status. But quite frankly, it's a pain in the fucking ass.
The responsibility alone, most guys can't handle the risk of failure. And at the top, if there's failure, it's usually on you. Unless you're a sociopath and you quit.
Well, like I've had the question, like, why won't you go for management positions? Because I've held management positions, I just don't do anymore. And for me, it's just as simple as I don't want to deal with people's personal fucking problems. Like let's say you're a specialist in your field. Your only problem is if someone's not competent. If you're managing people, suddenly Joe's divorce is a problem. the fact that Amy's fucking what's his name, Kevin in sales is your problem because they both report to you, and suddenly you're going to find out they're fucking with the numbers. And you get so many more problems by being in that position that it's just not worth the money unless it's like millions.
I didn't mind it. Like I said, you are right. Like if my students went to go get drinking and I had to go pick one of them out of the drunk tank, that became my problem. It was a thing that I didn't like. I didn't mind it only because I always gave them 100% and I expected 100% back. And it was kind of rewarding. But in the military structure, it makes sense. I don't see that in the corporate thing because there's no corporate loyalty. If everybody is at your job and they're not looking for another job, then it's just, I don't know how to articulate it, but yeah, it's just, it doesn't have the same camaraderie. So I don't blame you on like a corporate structure. I would not want to manage there at all. It's a pain in the ass, and people's personal problems can bug you, but you don't really have the authority to do anything about it anyway.
Well, it's also like the main reason why I moved into the field I'm currently in is that the money is more or less the same, but you don't have to deal with the quote unquote bullshit. Like, you don't have to build loyalty in people. You don't have to deal with their personal problems. And that frees up a lot of your time to actually do better with the things of the job you actually enjoy doing. And if you have people who enjoy leadership, and if they enjoy doing that, then more power to them.
But there's a ton of military guys, same thing. They wanted to be Killix their whole life. They never actually wanted to get promoted because they just like doing their job. They didn't like the management part. But then there's some people that are in it to win it. I think it's just one of those things you're either inclined to do or you're not inclined to do. There's always got to be specialists, and there's always got to be administrators, and there's always got to be leaders. On that note, I'm going to have to end it. We're hitting the 2-hour mark, and Rule Zero is coming up in like 23 minutes. So before we go, I guess a shout. If you guys don't know, Gendernomics has been out a while. Link's going to be in the description here. Check it out if you haven't already. It's Carl's book. It's pretty damn good. His first one anyway. Probably one of the best covers I've seen in this space. And as always, there's mine. Fuck Files. Again, link for that one's also in the description. Check them out if you guys are curious.
Yeah, fun fact, by the way, Gendernomics started selling better after switching the covers. Turns out you can't necessarily judge a book by its cover, but you buy a book by its cover.
Fair enough. All right. So I guess it's back on this channel on the half hour. It's going to be why Spurgs ruined the pill. That one's going to be fun. I hope you got your Socrates jokes out, Carl.
Yeah, I have a big, fat fucking book of them.
Nice. All right. So we'll see you guys in a couple minutes then.